All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going deep on carbon farming. You probably heard the term. It's kind of buzzy these days.
Definitely a hot topic.
But whether you're a farmer here in Nigeria, or maybe you're studying agriculture, or even, deep in the research world, we're going to break it down. What does this actually mean, in the real world for you?
And the really exciting thing is we're not just talking about cutting back on emissions. This is about actually removing that carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, taking it out.
Whoa. Imagine our farms here in Nigeria turning into these huge carbon sinks.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful imagery.
Yeah.
And what I love about this is it's not just, good for the planet, which is obviously a big deal, but healthier soil, better yields, that's stuff that matters to everyone, right?
Right. It's win-win-win, planet, soil, and the farmers.
Exactly. So how does this whole carbon farming thing, how does it actually work?
Well, at its core, it's about using specific farming practices, practices that are designed to pull that CO2 out of the air and store it right in the soil.
Okay, so almost like giving our soil superpowers to fight climate change.
Yeah, I like that super-powered soil.
All right, so I know we've got some serious academic minds listening, so let's get into the science a bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
There was this study in Nature Sustainability, and it found that regenerative farming practices could remove a massive 8.9 gigatons of CO2 every year. Every single year.
Huge number.
That's like taking, every single car in Nigeria off the road for over 20 years. It's mind-boggling.
It puts it in perspective, yeah.
So it's not just some theory, this is actually happening.
Yeah, real world stuff.
Okay, so give us some examples. What are we talking about here? What kind of practices are we looking at?
Well, one that's pretty common is cover cropping. So instead of leaving those fields bare after you harvest, which a lot of folks do, you plant these cover crops, things like legumes or grasses.
Right. I've heard about that, but does it really make that much of a difference? Is it really that impactful?
It is. Research from Michigan State University showed that cover crops, they can increase that soil carbon by, 15 to 28% over just 5 years. And that's not all. It helps with soil structure, prevents erosion, can even put nutrients back in the ground.
So it's like a win-win for the environment and the farmer's bottom line too. I like that.
Yeah.
What else is out there?
Well, Nigeria has this strong tradition of agroforestry.
Right.
Basically, you're incorporating trees right into that farmland. And this can be incredibly effective for carbon sequestration.
Yeah.
The World Agroforestry Center, they found that it can pull down, sequester up to 2.2 tons of carbon per hectare each year.
Plus, you get shade for your crops, your livestock, soil holds water better. Could even, think about it. It could create new income sources for farmers, right? Selling fruit or nuts or timber or whatever those trees produce. That's a pretty sweet deal.
It is. It's a great example of how this can be a multi-benefit solution, really sustainable on many levels.
Okay. So we've got cover cropping, we've got agroforestry. What other tools are in this carbon farming toolbox? What else can we pull out?
Have you heard of biochar?
Maybe.
It's fascinating. It's basically a type of charcoal, but you make it from agricultural waste. So you're taking stuff that might otherwise be, just left to rot or burned and turning it into something valuable.
Okay, so that's pretty cool.
And research from Cornell University found that adding this biochar to your soil, it can boost that carbon storage. We're talking 20 to 50%.
Whoa!
And here's the kicker. It locks that carbon in for centuries. It's like a time capsule.
Okay, that's incredible. So we're turning waste into a resource, and it's helping fight climate change. I'm on board with that. Okay, so what about livestock? I always hear how livestock, they're like public enemy number one when it comes to climate change.
Yeah. But here's where things get kind of interesting. There's this practice called rotational grazing. So you're moving your livestock between different pastures strategically. And this can actually lead to carbon sequestration.
Hold on. You're telling me that livestock, they can be part of the solution?
Exactly. The Savory Institute and Montana State University, they found that it can pull down 1 to 3 tons of carbon per hectare annually.
That's a complete paradigm shift.
It is.
This is what I love about carbon farming. It's full of surprises. It makes you think differently about things that we thought we knew.
Yeah.
So we've got all these amazing practices, but are they really enough on their own?
That's a great question, and it leads to a really important point. Synergy. A 2022 Stanford University paper, they highlighted how powerful it can be to combine multiple methods.
So it's like a superhero team up. Each one has its strength, but together they're unstoppable.
Precisely, like diversifying your portfolio, but instead of stocks, you're investing in your soil and the planet.
I love it. All right, so we've got these amazing tools, but how do we actually use them? Where do we even begin?
That's where things get really interesting, and that's what we'll dive into next.
Sounds like a plan. I can't wait to learn more. Stay tuned, folks. This carbon farming journey is just getting started. All right, welcome back, everyone. We've just kind of scratched the surface of carbon farming, and now it's time to really get into it. We've talked about the potential, but let's be real. There are always challenges when you're trying to put new ideas into practice.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd say one of the biggest hurdles we face, especially here in Nigeria, is the need for wider adoption. A lot of farmers are understandably a little hesitant to change their ways, especially if it means, upfront costs or they're not sure about the payoff.
Right. It's their livelihood. You've got to manage your farm like a business.
Yeah.
And change can be scary. So how do we convince more Nigerian farmers that carbon farming is a good investment?
Well, education is key, right? I mean, we need to make sure they have clear, easy to understand information, about the benefits, about the practices that work best for their specific region, for their crops, and also about the potential financial incentives that are out there. It's got to be about more than just saving the planet. It has to make sense for them financially too.
Right, because at the end of the day, farming is about putting food on the table and making a living. So how do we make carbon farming make financial sense for Nigerian farmers?
That's where I think policy and market mechanisms can really play a role. We can look to programs that have been successful in other places, like California has their Healthy Soils Initiative, or in the U.S., the USDA has the Conservation Stewardship Program.
Right.
These programs, they provide actual financial support to farmers who are adopting these carbon farming practices. It helps offset those initial costs, and it encourages more people to try it out, to take that leap.
Yeah, so it's like a little bit of a nudge, right? Like, hey, we'll help you get started.
Exactly.
I see the potential there. Could something like that work here in Nigeria, do you think?
I absolutely think so. We need policies that are supportive, that incentivize farmers to make that shift to more sustainable practices. Imagine, subsidies, tax breaks, or even a system where farmers can earn these carbon credits for the carbon they're storing in their soil, and then they could actually sell those credits.
Oh, now that's an interesting idea. Creating like a market for carbon credits, that could really change things for Nigerian agriculture, couldn't it?
It could.
I mean, farmers would actually be rewarded for being good stewards of the environment.
Yeah.
And it could attract investment, from companies who are looking to offset their emissions.
Exactly. And there's some amazing innovation happening in this space. Like researchers at the University of Oxford, they're exploring how blockchain technology could be used to verify and monetize those carbon credits.
Blockchain. That sounds pretty high tech. How would that work?
Well, imagine a system where farmers can easily track their progress, how much carbon they're sequestering, and then they can sell those verified credits directly to companies. And it's all tracked on this secure digital ledger. Totally transparent. Everyone can see what's happening.
So it's like cutting out the middleman.
Exactly.
It will really revolutionize how we value sustainable farming. It's almost like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually happening now.
It is. And there are already companies doing this, like Indigo Ag and Nori. They're creating these platforms. They connect farmers directly with the companies that want to buy those credits. It's a whole new economy around sustainable agriculture. And Nigeria could be a leader in this.
That's exciting. It feels like we're on the verge of a huge transformation. Let's zoom back in on Nigeria for a second. We've talked about the global picture, but what does this mean for us specifically? For our agricultural landscape, what are the opportunities and what are the challenges here?
That's a great question, and it's actually what we're going to tackle head on in the next part of our dive.
All right, so we're going to get really specific and practical. So stay tuned, folks. We're going to uncover how carbon farming can really take root and flourish right here in Nigeria.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've really gone in depth on carbon farming and how it could really be a game changer for agriculture globally. I mean, but now it's time to bring it home, to Nigeria. Right. And, Nigeria's agricultural landscape, it's so diverse. You've got, the humid rainforest down in the south and then the savanna up north. And that actually presents some really unique opportunities, but also challenges when it comes to, putting these carbon farming practices into action.
So it's not like, okay, here's the manual, do this, and it'll work everywhere.
No.
We have to really think about what works best for each region.
Exactly, yeah. It's got to be tailored. Like, for example, down south where you've got that abundant rainfall, that lush vegetation, agroforestry, huge potential there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Think about integrating trees, like oil palm or cocoa, right into those existing farms. You're pulling down carbon, soil's healthier, you're generating extra income for those farmers, all at the same time.
Yeah, it's like a triple win.
Oh.
Okay, so that's the South. What about the drier regions up north? What kind of practices would really thrive there?
Well, in those areas, conservation tillage could be key, and rotational grazing, reducing tillage, that minimizes how much you're disturbing the soil, so it helps hold on to that carbon, and it helps with moisture retention too, which is, a big deal in those drier areas.
Right. Yep.
And then rotational grazing, like we talked about before, that can really boost soil health, carbon sequestration, and it's good for the livestock too.
Okay, so tailoring the approach to the specific conditions, that's crucial. But beyond just the technical stuff, we got to think about the people too, right? How do we make sure that that carbon farming, it actually benefits Nigerian farmers, especially, the smallholder farmers who are really the backbone of our food system.
Right, yeah. That's a really important point. We got to make sure these initiatives are inclusive, that they're equitable. That means providing access to training, resources, financial support, especially for those smallholder farmers who might need a little extra help to get started with these practices.
We can't just assume everyone has the same starting point, right? We got to be proactive about it, make sure everyone has a chance to participate in this carbon farming revolution.
Absolutely. And we also have to think about land tenure issues. A lot of farmers in Nigeria, they don't have secure land rights. And that can be a big barrier to, making these long-term investments in soil health and carbon sequestration.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you're not sure you're going to be on that land in a few years, it's hard to put in the effort, the resources for something that can take a while to really pay off.
Exactly. So strengthening those land tenure systems, that's crucial too. It gives farmers that confidence, to invest in practices that are good for them and good for the environment.
So there are definitely challenges, no question. But the potential, it's huge. If we can get this right, carbon farming, it could be a win for everyone in Nigeria. It could help us fight climate change, improve our soil, make our farms more productive, create new economic opportunities.
Imagine, Nigerian farmers being seen as leaders in climate smart agriculture, not just feeding the nation, but really playing a role in this global effort to fight climate change.
That's a pretty inspiring vision. It's really about changing how we think about agriculture.
Yeah.
It's not just part of the problem, it can be a huge part of the solution.
Exactly. It's about innovation, collaboration, commitment to building a more sustainable future for Nigerian agriculture.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think we'll leave you with a challenge. What can you do in your own little corner of the world to help make this vision a reality?
Whether you're a farmer, a student, a researcher, or just someone who cares about the planet, we all have a role to play.
This is bigger than just individual practices. It's about changing how we think about the land, the land that sustains us. And it's about working together to create a brighter future for Nigeria and for the world.
The answers, they're out there. It's our ingenuity, our commitment to sustainability, and our willingness to embrace new ways of thinking.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope you learned something and that you're feeling inspired to take action. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.